There's increasing fragmentation in the world, increased tension. But the way I look at things, I also want to look at what are the opportunities within all these challenges. And there are a lot of opportunities for the continent. Although we don't want a fragmented and fractured world, but there's one thing coming out of it. There are some things we have that others need. So in this fractured world, there are many suitors. I don't know, but I think 2 years ago I mentioned something similar. There are many suitors courting Africa, the bride. And I just suggested we can marry all the suitors, right? We can have multiple husbands. We have a great advantage now. We have many things that are needed in the world. Critical minerals. We have a reservoir of these critical minerals that everyone is looking for the new transition to a low carbon economy. And we have to rethink. No longer can they come and extract this, but we must have value chains all the way from processing these minerals to making the EV batteries. We must insist on this, position ourselves, green hydrogen, putting the two together. Kenya has geothermal power already in place. We have many other countries. How do we organize ourselves to have regional value chains on the continent? So look, I see us geopolitically, economically well positioned, and we have something else, youth. We are going to have the largest working youth population by 2050. How do we ourselves harness this youth so it becomes a plus for us and for the rest of the world and not a minus? So just to name a few things, I just see opportunities. We have people in tech. I can go on. We have young people in fintech. We have young people in agri-tech. We have people in fashion. We have people in digital trade. We are doing so many things, but somehow we are never able to get the full story out of all the opportunities.
And let me pull on that thread. We're never able to get the full story out. So if you were to point us to 2 or 3 key things, and one of them in discussion right now is cost of capital for Africa. When we look at the global financial architecture, but all the way in Kenya, we talk about the mama mboga. That is the woman in the market who sells vegetables. You know, that woman and the cost of capital for her. So often people paying 20, 30. In Nigeria, with a young person the other day saying for a 5-month loan from a bank, a formal institution, 45% interest rate. How, Ngozi, can we survive? How can our businesses survive? How can they grow? What are the things that we need to break down and address? And how do we help you and others to focus on these areas?
Well, I think for some of these things, we need to stop looking outside all the time and look inside. You know, we are always looking for foreign direct investment, for, you know, things from outside. But inside we've got capital that is not being mobilized. Inside we've got business people who are billionaires, some of them undeclared because they are not listed on the stock exchange. Why don't we think about how to draw on what we have? So I would start first by looking at our internal management of our own economies, because that is what drives a lot of what you see, high interest rates, high inflation. It is true that the cost of capital outside has an influence on our ability to borrow outside, and that the risk for the continent is over-perceived. You know, that there's a perception of risk that is not real in mind. But I want us to look inside the continent. How do we have a stable macroeconomic environment ourselves? Have we put in place the right fiscal and monetary policies ourselves that can help us? Have we looked to our own business people? Is the business environment good for them? If your own domestic investors are complaining and they cannot invest, you don't know that the others outside are looking at them. And if they are having difficulty, then you are not going to be able to attract anyone. So this is what they tell me all the time, you know. So let's start by cleaning up our own act, managing our economies in the proper way, attracting our own. We have pools of capital on the continent. We have pension funds that are investing elsewhere instead of in the continent. So I would like us to draw more on our own resources.
So building those tools and mechanisms for Africa to help herself grow. Why have we not done it?
Are you trying to get me in trouble?
No, but let's, yeah.
We've not done it because it's not that easy. You need consistent. You know, not too long ago, I gave a talk about policy consistency. I think, you know, many of our countries are getting it right, so let's not undersell that either. It's not like everywhere on the continent, things are not working. We have countries that are working, that are growing, that are being managed properly. And so we need to look at that and have many more of us. So, but it's, a lot of it is having leadership, governance, consistency in the way we approach things. I always say, you know, if one administration comes and leaves, the next one should look at what are the good policies, carry those on. The bad ones, you can put them aside. The good ones, you build on it, because people outside look at policy consistency. And, you know, I have what I call the syndrome of not made in my administration, which sometimes leads to throwing away good things. And people are looking at that.
Let's talk about intra-Africa trade, right? Again, so much opportunity, fastest growing population in the world, more income in the hands of African people. We are our greatest opportunity, right? And yet something is happening there where we're trying. AFCFTA is doing a lot of work, others trying to stand alongside. And these borders were never created by us. We have communities and families living between borders, but we're still honoring the scramble and what was created by the scramble for Africa. Is it time for a reset? And how can we go into a new phase?
Well, to give credit to our leaders, I think they've already reset by agreeing to have the African Continental Free Trade area. So I want to also give them credit for the good things they've done. They've reset. I think what is needed now is steady implementation. Rome was not built in a day, so it's going to take us time. I believe the AFCTFA, they are trying their best. They need to speed up, but I think bit by bit, some things are coming into place. I think a payment system is coming into place, but we need to work faster. And the reason I think we need to work faster is because young people are not going to be waiting. We have a reservoir pool of young people who are ahead. I mean, when I look at the young population of the continent, they give me so much hope and courage. We are behind where they are. And if we don't work fast enough to give them the opportunities, then, you know, we don't know what will happen. So I agree with you, Julie. I'm not trying to give excuses. I just don't want us to, I want us to give credit where credit is due and work has been done, and that will enable us to ask for faster progress. So we need to move faster there. The barriers need to come down. You know, we talked about having one passport. So for business people at least, so that they could move quickly and freely, I don't think we've arrived there. Some of the major infrastructure projects that could link countries, and here's where you come to trade, they're still on the drawing board. And the one thing I will always continue to say, the cost of doing trade on the continent is too high. It's like adding another tariff onto goods of over 300%. With that, it's very difficult to compete. And we can bring some of those costs down by digitizing some of our trading processes, implementing the trade facilitation agreement of the World Trade Organization. We've shown that countries that implemented it have seen their trade costs come down dramatically. But the average implementation worldwide is 70-something%, but for our continent it's 40-something.
Okay,
so why don't our countries implement that and help to bring the costs of trade down?
So there's some action right there, something to focus on.
Yeah.
Let's go to women. And there's a quote that I just love that says that when sleeping women wake, mountains move. That's such a beautiful quote. And we know what women are in Africa today. And again, we come back to this, you know. When you look at climate action, you look at other agendas, they build momentum and they grow and they move. And we've been talking about empowering women economically, socially, politically for too long, with not enough gain. We have moved forward, but not enough. Maybe my question to you is, Is there a new way to think about this? Should we communitize it, or what do we need to do to make sure that Africa truly does carry this agenda and move it forward?
Yeah, we've been talking about it for too long, but I think we need to break it down a bit and look at different sectors. If you look economically, African women are amazing. I just have to say that. You know, I have tremendous respect for them because they are economically so active, pushing, and if you see some of the things they're doing with very little support, you'll be amazed. So for those on the economic side, I think we just need to figure out what is in their way. You know, so they're not even asking you to come and do it. They are just saying remove the barriers that are preventing us from thriving, and we will do the rest ourselves, okay? So that's one thing we've got to look at. And when you think of the economy, what are the bureaucratic, financial, legal barriers in their way? So that's one thing we've got to think. Politically, it's a different ballgame. And behind, African women are behind in many of our countries, except if some, you know, Rwanda has set the example.
Yes.
Of
Let's
having...
give Rwanda a round of applause. Incredible example.
You know, so it can be done, and so we need to reflect on how do we, yes, sometimes we have to take legal steps to empower women, because when it comes to the politics, they don't have they don't have the financial muscle behind them to be able to win seats in a democracy. They are often pushed aside by the men, sorry. Sometimes when they win, they are even asked to step aside, you know, so a man can take the seat. So we need to speak to the men, you know, and we need to have the men backing some of this so we can move forward. So politically, I think we need legislation that will enable women. Normally, I'm a competition type of person. I believe in competing for everything. That's how my career has progressed. But you can see that in certain things, even when you try to compete, it doesn't work. There are barriers in the way. So I think we need courage. Just men. They are doing all the things. If you look at all the areas where the opportunities are, young people are already there. You know, so a rallying cry is for us to realize that we have a unique resource in our youth and our women, and we need to get behind them. That's all.
Wonderful, wonderful. Yes. Absolutely. As we close, can I say we have such admiration for you. As a leader, as a woman, we honor you and we thank you for the path that you have created.
Thank you.
And I want to ask you, 5 years from now, headline about Africa. What would that headline, or what should that headline be, if we get things right?
The headline for me will be, Africa does not need aid. Invest in Africa. Don't send aid to Africa. That for me is
invest in Africa. Don't send aid to Africa.
Yeah.
I was speaking to somebody a few days ago who said, right now Africans are still trying to get out. Very soon, people will be trying to get in.
Yeah.
And so a new Africa is coming. Can we give a round of applause to the incredible Ngozi?
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Dr. Ngozi, lovely to see you. It's good to see you. Thank you so much, Julie. A round of applause.